Yeah, so she's gonna do the after you talk about. I'm gonna ask us what happened. Okay, she's gonna do the scenario. We talk about
Good morning. Welcome to the TVET National 4IR Expo, hosted by Academic Solution and Geek Culture. I'm Christine,
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Naomi.
and today we're looking forward to a fun, packed session. Let's recap on yesterday, what we talked about yesterday.
So yesterday we had speakers, namely Mr. Babalo Maipetla from Cisco, who spoke about the different technologies we can use in 4IR. Then we had Mr. Chivudzibu Waltavele from DHET, who spoke about how we can disrupt our academic curriculum using 4IR. And lastly, we had Dr. Patricia M. Goes, who spoke about robotics in 4IR. That was a very interesting session and speakers we had yesterday to start off. Yeah.
And from the hands-on sessions, we had the likes of Miss Figile Mlangeni, who talked about digital marketing and how we can leverage it into today's age, And we also had a session from HMX, which was facilitated by Lina Kitenge, and she talked about how we can actually use the platforms to build our solutions through the Expo.
Okay, I think we can go to our house rules now. First, please mute your microphones when you join the call. Let's respect each other in the chat online. Keep the conversation professional at all times and be teachable. Get ready to learn.
Before we get started, don't forget to use our hashtags, which is hashtag
Rise TVET.
yeah, so that's hashtag rise with a Z TVET on social media. This will be on Twitter. So don't forget to hashtag rise TVET on Twitter. That's rise with a Z. And show us your workstation, so tell us what you're excited about for today's sessions. And just let us know what you're doing today within these sessions.
Christine, what do we have? Who's our first speaker today?
Our first speaker for today will be Dr. Paul Lentinga from the HSRC, sorry.
So Dr. Paul
Dr. Paul, are you there?
Is that Yolanda? Sorry,
Hi,
I didn't
how are
see
you?
Good, thanks.
Dr. Paul, are you there?
Hey. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Are you ready to present?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Am I meant to be presenting now?
Yes,
But I'm
sir.
happy to.
We're
Okay.
waiting for you.
Oh, sure. Okay, can I just share my screen as well?
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead with that.
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry, I thought I was presenting after a few people on the program.
You're the first person on the call.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll start then.
Awesome.
Hold on. Okay, this should work. I'm just going to share PowerPoint instead of the Google Slides.
But how are you feeling today, Dr. Paul?
Well, fine, thanks. Paul is fine.
Yeah. I mean,
I've got to put this in.
from your talk today?
Sorry?
What can we expect from your talk today?
How am I feeling about it?
What can we expect?
Oh, sorry, I'm losing you a bit there. So I'm having with things on the presentation. Let me see if I could. Wow. I don't know if this is my
Are you winning?
Firefox setting that's blocking. I've just got a permission. Sorry, I've just got to sort out my permissions. Okay, it should work now.
No pressure. No pressure.
There we go.
Okay, we're going to go in
Quite-
for a
it's
short
quite
break,
strict on
and
sharing.
then come back and continue.
Okay, it should be presenting now. Do you see that?
It is, but you should do it on a full screen because we're getting a lot of.
Sure.
Can you fix that?
Is that right now?
Not yet. Maybe is it F11? Yeah. F11 or F5? You'll be fine.
Yeah, I've gone to full screen. It's showing full screen on my side. So right now, do you just see the PowerPoint, the slide mode, not the presentation mode?
Slide mode, not presentation mode.
Okay, let me try again. Still
What
not.
did you see? No.
RC, as we mentioned, he's a
Thanks. So I didn't know what format this was going to be done in, and I'm assuming
You can start
can't have
presenting.
interaction. But are we able to see chat comments of any kind?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Not sure I can. All right. Okay, I'm just going to go back to sharing. Okay, I'm going to struggle. I don't have a second screen. So I'm just going to present then, and then we can see if there's questions afterwards. So I won't do the questions as part of the presentation.
Okay.
I'll just present and then see if there's questions at the end. All right, so yeah, I'm Paul Santinga from HSRC, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit around the data space, but I'm specifically going to be focusing on storytelling around data, which sounds a little bit not for IR-like, but it's a critically important part of how we work with data these days. Because data in itself is useful, but data becomes impactful when it's embedded in a narrative or a story where it triggers some kind of action. So from that perspective, I'm going to focus on how data is integrated into storytelling and give you a few examples and then happy to take some questions later. I was going to ask participants for some interaction, but I can't see participants and I can't see the responses easily. So I'm just going to go through this and then go into the rest of the presentation. So one of the more interesting recent speeches, he noted a couple of specific facts related to alcohol consumption in South Africa. And I've taken out an extract from that speech or that opinion article that he posted on News 24 and highlighted them here. So I'm going to go through the statements that he made just to show how data is currently being used. And this is based on an analysis that Africa Check has done related to the specific statement. So if you're interested, you can have a look at the Africa Check website and see the detailed analysis of this statement. So in his statement, in his speech, he said two things. The first was that only 31% of South Africans drink alcohol. And then the second point that he made was that South Africans consume more alcohol per person than anywhere in Africa. So those are two interesting points, because firstly, 31% doesn't seem like a lot of people, especially if you're a student, where it seems like 100% of people drink alcohol. And then the second is that it seems like we consume more. His statement was that we consume more alcohol than anyone else in Africa per head, per capita. So there's obviously been a lot of debate about these kind of points, and what Africa Check did is that they then sourced data to essentially certify whether these statements were correct or incorrect, which is not always easy with data because it depends on what data you're looking at. So what Africa Check did is that they sourced the World Health Organization report on alcohol consumption. And if you want to go and have a look at that, you're very welcome to follow the link and we can share the presentation afterwards. But in that World Health Organization report, they have data from 2016 where they collected data on who consumes alcohol in South Africa. And there's various pieces of data in this report, as you can see, but in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a small section related to abstainers. So that's essentially people who don't consume alcohol. And in South Africa, the number of people that don't consume alcohol here is 69%. So that seems to validate what he said about only 31% of South Africans drink alcohol, because 69% say that they don't. So they've either never drunk alcohol before in their lives, or they used to drink alcohol and now they've stopped for at least the last 12 months. So that's, for me, it's personally a surprise. I didn't think that so many people didn't drink alcohol in South Africa. And this is obviously people, they've indicated here, people above the age of 15. So this doesn't include children. So it seems to be fairly reasonable statistic. So it seems that his first statement was correct. The second statement about South Africans consuming more alcohol per person than anywhere in Africa. So using the same World Health Organization data on consumption per capita, they look at the amount of alcohol consumed per head, and they found, and if you look at this graph, you can see on the left-hand side is the highest. So this is, I think it's 20 liters of alcohol, pure alcohol per capita. And the highest consumers in the world is the Seychelles, it seems, interestingly. And then second seems to be Uganda. And then there are a whole lot of mainly European countries. So Lithuania, Luxembourg, Germany. And as you can see, there are a few African countries that have quite high alcohol consumption per capita, including Nigeria, and then quite far down on the right is South Africa. So we seem to be, in terms of African countries, we seem to be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We seem to be in about 7th place in terms of the amount of alcohol we consume per capita. And in the world, we probably, I don't know, about 30th place. So although we do consume a lot of alcohol, given that there's probably 200 odd countries in the world, so we are in the top kind of proportion of consumers of alcohol. We don't seem to be the highest in Africa. So the second statement doesn't seem to be entirely correct, but we would have to check what data he's using. He might be using another data source that is not necessarily from the World Health Organization. So it doesn't seem like the second statement is correct. So this was just an example to show how we are currently using data and how data is used, especially related to fact checking in kind of the governance space. And it's especially topical these days because of statements made by many politicians around the world, especially in the US, where there's a lot of arguments that facts and data are no longer relevant because you can make up your own data and make up your own facts. So there's a lot more interest in how in what data is available and how it's used and how it's interpreted or misinterpreted. So anyway, that's some work that Africa Check does, and I encourage you to have a look at their website because they have a lot of examples of doing fact checking using data from these kinds of sources. So going a little bit more into the data space in South Africa and how it's used as part of storytelling, which is kind of the core of what I wanted to talk through. One of the most topical issues recently has been around the pit toilets around the country and South African government's attempts to eradicate the pit toilets and some of the commitments they've made to doing that. So the Passmark team has, I think this was 2016, developed a data story where they analyze data related to pit toilets around the country. So I'm going to try switch to the online version of this just to show you. Can you just confirm you can see my screen and this page?
Yes, we can. South Africa's deadly oil.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is another website you can go to. This is an example of a data story related to school toilets around the country. So I'm going to go through it reasonably quickly, but just to show you, this is if you can imagine a normal news article that a newspaper might produce, this is similar to that. They've just packaged it as a single page on a website, and then it's essentially a form of storytelling. So you scroll down, and then the story unfolds like a normal news website. But then as you go, different parts of the data are highlighted as you scroll through the story. So as you can see, as I scroll down, you can see that it highlights this data points of where one of the first stories related to, I think, a child dying in a toilet occurred. So that's highlighted in that red dot at the border between Eastern Cape and KZN. And then as you scroll further down the story, the data starts being expanded. So as you read the story, you can see they then start mapping out all of the schools in the Eastern Cape where the schools only have pit toilets. And again, I think this is 2016. So you can see there's a large number of schools that only have pit toilets or had pit toilets in the Eastern Cape. And then as you scroll further down, they start expanding the story to talk about not only the toilets, not only the schools in the Eastern Cape, but also schools in other provinces. So I'm going to keep scrolling through the story. So you can see they then start talking about schools in Limpopo province and specific stories that have taken place related to the toilets in those schools, and then highlighting other parts of the country. And as you can see, they're starting to develop a much broader picture of the data and the issue in the country. And then also overlaying with more traditional graphics. So this is a bar chart that shows the number of schools with no toilets as of 2011. So it's almost 10 years old now. But it gives you an idea of how the data is presented as part of a story. So this is an example, a really good example of what a team in South Africa has done working with data just related to toilets in South Africa, and then embedding it into what would normally be a a story that you would see in an online newspaper or similar. So that's an example of how they've worked with the data but made it quite impactful by integrating it with a normal news story and then adding other interactive elements to it, such as you can listen to audio from people interviewed as part of the stories, etc. So the data is integrated into a wider story, which makes the data much more impactful rather than just presenting the data outright. So I don't remember how much time I've got, so I'm just going to switch back to the presentation, and I'll probably stop fairly soon. Sorry, could you confirm how much time I have left in total? Yolanda or Gabriel?
Now you can continue.
I just wanted to, it's quite a long presentation, so I just wanted to know how much I should leave out or keep in.
You've got 15 minutes.
Okay, great.
15.
Right. So I'll stop after, say, 5 or 10 minutes.
All right,
okay.
cool.
Okay, all right. So there's quite a lot more to this, but I'll try and jump to specific parts of the presentation. Another popular topic, obviously, in the news space is around crime statistics. So again, there's some very interesting web stories developed around crime statistics in the country and comparing us, for example, to other countries. So on the right-hand side, you can see a graph that compares our murder rate to other countries globally. And then on the left, you can see a spatial mapping of the data, which shows in red or different shades of red, where the highest crime rates, and I think that's murder rates, are around the country in specific wards and municipalities. So you can see, I think that's somewhere close to Guyana. I'm not sure where that is exactly, but you can see there's an example of a red highlighted area in Popo, where there is quite a high crime rate or murder rate in that case. And then obviously other parts of the country through Gauteng, you can see there's darker shading as well. So again, this is just examples of how you can visualize the data on specific topics. This is an example that was developed for Valentine's Day, I think it's 2015, by the Open Up team. And this one, they used data from Statistics South Africa, and as you may know or may not know, every time someone gets married, that data is registered at Home Affairs and then passed on to Statistics South Africa. So they keep track of all the data on who gets married in South Africa every year, and then they obviously have the age of the people getting married and whether they were male or female, etc. So if you analyze that data and you put it onto a graph, you can see some interesting patterns. So as you can expect, so just to highlight, on the x-axis is the age of the bride, so from 0 to 100 years old. And then on the y-axis is the age of the groom, also from 0 to 100. So then if you plot all the marriages in South Africa, and this was from 2012 onto this graph, you can see that most marriages are in that kind of red highlighted area in the middle. So most people getting married are where the groom is about 25 years old and the bride is about 25 years old, which is what we would expect. But then if you look at some of the other data, you can see there are slightly unusual cases. So for example, there is an example in 2012 where a man who was probably about 17 got married to a lady who was about 85. And then in the same year, on the other end of the spectrum, there was a bride, so she would have been about 19 or 18, getting married to a man who was about 75. So once you start looking at the data and some of these outliers, you can see some potentially interesting stories developing around marriage in South Africa. So that's just an example. So as you would have seen, I'm not going to go through this in detail. In COVID, you would have seen a lot of graphics presented, especially around the health side of COVID-19, and things like cases, positive cases, deaths, etc. And but there is a lot more data related to the COVID situation. So things like people not being able to access or pay for food because of retrenchments, etc. So some colleagues of mine from the HSRC wrote this article as an op-ed where they analyzed the data from surveys that they conducted during COVID, and from that data that you can see, and it's not very easy to see in this one, but this graph showing the percentage of people that were going to bed hungry since the start of the lockdown. So that's from April 2020. There were about 28% of people who were going to bed hungry since the start of lockdown, and then it's steadily been increasing. So as of early September, about 43% of people were saying that they were going to bed hungry. So as you can see, the impact of lockdowns has had a big influence on people's access to food, either because they can't access it or because they can't afford to pay for food anymore. So this is an example of data related to COVID that is broader than just the health crisis. And then the other one more recently has been around the PPE and the procurement and corruption related to PPE. And if you are interested, there is ongoing work. National Treasury has been publishing the data related to procurement of PPE. So you can go to the National Treasury website and you can download the PDF files and you can analyze the data yourself if you want to. So the Mail and Guardian has created a tool, essentially a spreadsheet where they have extracted all the data from those PDFs, or a lot of the data from the PDFs, I think the provincial data, and that data is then being analyzed to identify possible irregular expenditure as part of PPE. So for example, if you have access to the data, you can compare the price that was paid for masks by a government entity with what the price is at your local retail store. So then you can see if there's potentially inflated prices for PPE. And that's how you can identify that's how the news outlets identify potential stories, by looking at that data. And then there is an initiative to then extract more of the data, especially from national government, and a lot of volunteers work on this. So if you're interested, you can participate through the GitHub link. Not that one, but we can always provide that to you, and you can help to extract that data. I'm not going to go too much more into this. The rest of the presentation is a little bit more theoretical about what data is. So I'm going to go to a couple of very specific points, just to highlight a couple of examples. So many of you would assume that data, I think, is really just numbers in the spreadsheet. But we like to interpret data much more broadly. So as an example, if you look at air quality data, on the top left, an example of air quality data that is mostly text is the laws related to air quality data. So for example, in Johannesburg, they say there's a whole law where it describes what you're allowed to do, whether a factory, where a factory is allowed to be set up, what the emissions are allowed on that factory. So that's the law. Another example of data in the air quality space is the license that's awarded to the factory or the power station for any pollution that they might emit. So in this case, the license is awarded to a specific company, Score Metals, in Ekurhuleni, based in Ekurhuleni, and it says how much pollution they're allowed to emit on an hourly basis. And then the third piece of data is then usually your sensor data. So when a company or the municipality is then looking to monitor the amount of pollution in an area, they put up sensors and then they collect data on the different pollutants. So for example, whether that's sulfur dioxide as an example is a popular one, or nitrous. They then measure the amount of nitrous oxide in the air, and then they can go back to the people that they've awarded a license to, for example, to say you're exceeding the amount of pollution you're allowed to emit into the atmosphere, and that they then need to take some corrective action. So in this case, you have essentially three kind of types of data related to air quality. There's the kind of more textual data related to the law. There's the license data, which is a mix of both numerical data as well as textual data. So, and then you have the sensor data coming from the sensors, which is mostly numerical data in spreadsheets. So all of that is useful for analyzing the data and picking up issues, and whether you're building a mobile application or doing a data story for a newspaper, you usually want to work with all of those different types of data, whether it's text numbers, and whether it's in the law or a license or in a spreadsheet. So what we normally guide people on around developing data stories is essentially a 7-step process, starting off with a question, and then you follow various steps. So one of the big steps, of course, is the second one, which you'll see there, is about finding the data. And that's often people's biggest challenge is they have something they want to investigate, or they want to build a mobile application about, for example, train schedules or bus schedules or taxi routes, that kind of thing. But then the big question is always, where do I find the data? And then there are various other steps around, preparing the data, especially cleaning the data and then analyzing it, and then either integrating it into your application or developing some visual picture of the data. So I'm going to comment on the find step quite quickly. There's a link. We aggregate quite a lot of links to data sources on the Open Data South Africa Toolkit. So you can Google this, or you can go directly to the link. And there you can find links to lots of data sources. Some data is really poor quality, or probably most, I would say 80% of data is quite difficult to work with. So we've provided lots of links to data, but it still means there's quite a lot of work to do related to the data, and there's often lots of data gaps. But there are some data sources that are quite good quality these days, and one of the most useful data sources are around government budgets and government spending, because National Treasury has done quite a lot of work to make that data clean and accessible. So there's a project called Vuleka Mali, where you can essentially look at spending data for government in quite a lot of detail. And another one called Municipal Money, which has data related to municipal spending and municipal revenue. So if you wanted to find out what your municipality is doing, you can have a look at that. And this is just an example. These are screenshots from the Municipal Money website. As you can see, you can compare eThekwini with City of Johannesburg, and you can see how they are spending their budgets, for example. If you go to that website, and then you can access the raw data that is used for creating these graphs as well. So you can create your own graphs too. I'm not going to comment on these other things. You're welcome to look at it, but there are ways, if you ever run into PDFs and you need to get the data out of it, you can quite easily extract it using a variety of tools. I shouldn't say easily, it's still challenging, but there are tools to help you get data out of PDF tables. You then need to typically clean the data, so there's a variety of things you should look at there. And then usually the most interesting part is when you try to visualize the data, whether it is in an application or as a news article. And then you need to decide how you might want to format the data depending on what kind of story you're telling. So for example, this is just an example of migration. And they've essentially mapped out the data related to migration globally. And the size of the the size of the line, the width of the line effectively tells you how much migration there is between two different regions. So as an example, if you look at the blue line on the bottom, the blue arc at the bottom, you can see there's quite a lot of migration between India and the United Arab Emirates. So that's Dubai and Qatar as examples. And then you'll see at the top of this graph, of this graphic, there's in the yellow, there's a huge amount of migration between Mexico and the United States, which you can expect because they are on a border and there's a lot of migration across that border. So anyway, this is just an example of how you visualize data in probably a different way to a bar chart or a column chart or a pie chart. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. And then there are lots of tools that you can use, and a lot of them are free. So you don't need to pay for many of the tools that are available. These are ones that are specifically used for visualization and developing infographics. So you can have a look at them if you ever want to get into that space and start playing with the data. And you can start off very simple. It doesn't need to be complicated at all. It can just be a table of 10 data values and 10 rows and 3 columns, and you'll be able to already start developing quite interesting visualizations using these kinds of tools. And obviously you can use Excel. So that's also an option. Okay, so that's all from my side. I'm happy to take questions. I'm sorry it wasn't very interactive, but I can't really tell what's going on in the background. So I'm happy to do questions now, and if there are any, and any other items.
It was definitely interesting to see how data can be used and what data is available out there and the different types of data that can be collected in different ways. We just have a few questions from the chats. One question is, how do you know that the data that you have collected is accurate?
Okay, great. So I'll just answer the questions one by one. So checking the accuracy of the data, or I suppose verifying data, is one of the biggest issues. So it's great that you've highlighted it. Actually, Africa Check has some quite useful steps as part of their fact-checking activities, which if you go to their website, you can have a look at. So they have quite useful guides, but usually it involves a variety of things. So one of the more important ones is really to look at the source of the data. So usually when you're working with data from, for example, Statistics South Africa, they publish their methodology of how they collected the data, etc. So they have quite rigorous methods. So just knowing who produced the data, especially official statistical data, as an example, you can have a reasonably high level of trust in the data. So the source is often an important one, and independent sources are usually the most reliable. So Research Council, Statistics South Africa are typically quite reliable, and others then can vary. So industry associations are often also quite reliable sources, but then there can be ones that are more, I suppose they're more aligned to specific political directions or lobbying for specific interests. So then some of the industry sources of data you would probably need to be somewhat careful about, or thoughtful about. Then the other, which I suppose I alluded to, was looking at how they collected the data. Would be the other probably big thing. So as I mentioned, Statistics South Africa, when they publish a report, they usually have either a whole section of their report or even a separate document altogether where they describe their data collection methodology. So then ideally, a way you can tell if data is reasonably accurate is firstly whether the person making the data available is willing to share their methodology of how they source the data. If they're not willing to explain how they source the data, then you should probably be very cautious. And then if they can provide you with the details of that, it's even better. So I think those are probably the two main things. Then the third I would say is then just to verify the data with other sources. So that's something that the journalism community is very familiar with. When they publish a story, they are meant to always corroborate statements or evidence with two other sources. So, for example, if you see some data related to, say, the PPE is a good example, or identify potential irregular expenditure, then ideally, in addition to looking at the data, you probably would go and interview people who are involved in the procurement of PPE to try to corroborate what the data is saying. So those are, I suppose, three approaches for verifying data. Am I still there? It's very quiet.
Sorry. Another question is the data that is collected able to predict future patterns?
Yeah, it's been a very popular one during COVID days, because there have been so many people trying to project how many cases and how many deaths are likely to result due to COVID. So yes, to some extent, and this is it is a growing area, especially with machine learning. But I mean, but projections related to data have been done for probably hundreds of years. So although machine learning is kind of increasing the amount of attention in this space, there is this has been a popular field for many years, working with data and then trying to make projections about what will happen next. So yeah, depending on what data you're working with, you can start making projections. And I suppose there are some sectors where this is probably more rigorous. The health space, I suppose COVID has maybe exposed some of the challenges with making projections, just because your ability to make projections is affected by the amount of data you have. And the more data you have, the more likely your projections are to be reasonably accurate. So I suppose one of the big things to do is if you're working with very small data sets, is that you have to be very careful about making projections. Once you start getting to larger data sets, it gets better, but as we've seen with COVID, there are still real risks around making projections with data. So yeah, it needs caution.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. I think we've definitely learned a lot through the talk and the session, and I think it's information that we could definitely use in future. And yeah, that was very interesting. I did see the graph where he shows different ages of people being in relationships. I guess it's safe to say love has no age limits. Yeah, I think we're going to go into a break and we'll come back.
Great. Thanks very much. Sorry, Gabriel, did you need me to hang around?
Well, I think we've
No, it's all.
learned a lot.
Sorry. No, it's all right, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. See you soon.
You too. Cheers.
We had a chat with Mr. Paul Plantina, and we were discussing how data can be used to find issues and to find solutions, to build solutions for
those problems.
Moving
Moving
on,
on, we are moving to
Vuyani
Vuyani
Magibisela. He's
Magibisela.
Mr.
He's
Vuyani
Mr. Vuyani
Magibisela
Magibisela from
from
Saibono.
Saibono.
He's
He's
an
an
ICT
ICT
trainer,
trainer,
clubhouse
clubhouse
coordinator,
coordinator,
developer,
developer,
3D
3D
animation and modeling, front end and back end web developer. Are you there, Mr. Vuyani?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here.
How are you feeling this morning, sir?
I'm good, and you?
No, we're
Perfect.
good. We're just waiting to hear what you have for us in store for the expo.
All right. I'm just going to talk about AI, robotics, and how it's involved with 4IR, and basically what you need to know about that based on my knowledge of training ICT, basically.
All right, cool. We just waiting for you to start your presentation and keep us going. We're more than ready to learn from you today.
Okay. All right. Can I share the screen?
You're more than welcome. It's your time.
Okay. All right. Let me try to do that.
Before we continue, don't forget to use the hashtag RiseTVET on social media. That's Rise with the Z. Let us know what you're learning. Let us know what you're finding interesting, and show us your workstation. That's RiseTVET, Rise with the Z on Twitter.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Just do this.
Full screen mode.
Do you see the presentation, or do you see, because I can't see exactly what you guys can see?
We're seeing everything with all the slides.
All right.
F5.
Because I wanted to show the presentation slide.
Okay.
Without the slide. So, yeah. How do we change that? Okay. Let me try again.
Are you winning, sir?
Presentation, PowerPoint. Screen one. Okay. Almost there. Screen two. Okay. Allow. All right.
Great stuff. All right, cool. You've got 10 to 15 minutes to present. Over to you, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this. Just as you've introduced me, my name is Vuyani Magibisela. I'm an ICT trainer and coordinator at the Clubhouse. I also do 3D modeling, also a programmer. I do back-end programming. I do object-oriented programming, and also dabble there in the front-end programming, where I just do the UI, user interface designs. Okay. Basically, I just want to talk about the 4IR and how it has impact in our community and our society, and basically what we should look out for. In the recent years, there have been like major advancements in several technology areas collectively, and they've been labeled 4IR. These areas will have a lot of impact. I see they will have a lot of impact when it comes to the employment and information and security within our society. So let's just talk about that. The impact on employment. 4R will have a dramatic impact on employment. There is technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, augmented reality, analytics, robotic processing, automation, are some of the 4IR technologies that basically have been the lead of the industry. These technologies can be combined and applied to a wide range of industrial, commercial, and social applications. Basically, they don't just end up on the industry side of things, just like the previous industrial revolutions. These ones can also be applied in social type of applications. The large-scale application of these will have an effect on employment, economies, and society. So there will be an impact on the information and security, privacy and security in our whole life. Let's take, for example, banks. When you go to apply for a loan, when you go apply for a loan, you actually give the bank a lot of information about you. So you give them everything, where you stay, how much you earn, where you work. So that's a lot of information that can basically get you in trouble, or that can get you maybe hacked, let's say. So if companies like banks and other companies that handle such information are not monitored, or they are not regulated, and especially when it comes to handling that data information, this becomes a very critical and dangerous path. So as we're developing 4IR, as a community and societies are developing 4IR, there is these things we need to look at, which involve the security and privacy of our information. So governments and societies need to look into that. Also, social media is also a big area where data is being collected. You tell people where you're going, you tell people where you at by sharing on your Instagram or sharing on your Twitter or TikTok. That's a lot of information that hackers or anyone with malicious intent can basically use to get hold of you or get hold of your area and be able to do any malicious things that they want to do. So that's why even, let's say, make an example with the controversy of TikTok. America has been having, they wanted to ban it. They haven't really banned it. They just made sure that they look into the legislations and the controlling of data. So those are really big things that us as a society and the governments should look into and find a way to regulate those things. Also, advertising is also another area where there's like a lot of information and privacy, information collection basically. So a lot of advertising companies would need your specific information in order to tailor make adverts for you, or to tailor make products that they can basically they can basically sell directly to you, and that is a way of them using your data, either collectively from social media, collected from social media, just like the Facebook scandal that happened, where Facebook for some reason was able to, or Facebook information from Facebook was able to be leaked to other areas, and it was used maliciously. So advertising is also another area where there's a lot of collection of information, and I believe those should be regulated in order for us to have a more secure 4IR and a more reliable, you can rely on it basically, rely on the industry. Lastly, IoT devices are also becoming, they're becoming more and more right now. A lot of the devices that we're getting right now, they are integrated to the internet. So your microwaves, your fridges, your car, everything is integrated to the internet. So once that is integrated to the internet, once you have a connection or a wireless connection, to the internet, whatever device or object, once it has that connection, it is valuable. It can easily be hacked, let me put it that way. So hackers can be able to interface that thing or interact between that thing and cut communication between your device and your microwave. If you were maybe have a smart home and you're warming up your food from a smartphone. So those are also things that need to also be looked into. How do we control that? How do we secure that? So yeah, let me move on to the next slide. Okay. Moving on, I would like to talk about the augmented reality and robotics. How it will basically it will actually replace humans later on in stage. So in the case of augmented reality, the majority of this technology is leading to human replacement. It might evolve through these 4 stages. The first stage, which is level 1, the first level, most of the augmented reality headsets right now that exists have this ability. Might provide or display detailed step-by-step instructions in an AR headset. So right now, the Microsoft, I think, has been working on an augmented reality headset, and it's able to basically display information on you. And also Google also has been working on augmented reality headsets, and they're also able to show you direction, show you notifications from your phone. So this ability is already happening. Moving on to second stage, it will provide confirmation. For example, the visual display in your AI headset shows readings that confirm success of the task. So also this second stage, majority of augmented reality headsets are able to perform this task. They are augmented reality headsets that can be able to be combined with hand gloves that you can use to connect, to basically build a 3D model using the augmented reality. So what happens, you have a software, a 3D software that is specifically designed for augmented reality headsets. It then interacts with gloves that have sensors on them, and you can basically mold virtually through the headsets. While you're looking through the headsets, you can mold whatever object you want to mold. You also have tools that you can grab and mold and build anything that you want to build. So that is the second step when it comes to this augmented reality going into production and kind of replacing humans. The third stage is basically whereby when your headset is able to generate analytics, for example, show the last time maintenance was performed. So now at this stage, we would be talking about when the augmented reality headset is now more integrated into an industry. So we are able to just put on the headset and look at a machine and see when it was last maintained and see if there's any issues with it immediately from just analyzing it using programs. It could be an AI program, it could be maybe a machine learning program, whichever program that would be implemented in that augmented reality headsets. The last and final stage would be whereby we now take this augmented reality. The fourth stage would be to build an AR headset capability into a robot. So we take this AR information, AR experience that we basically have built throughout, and we integrate it into a robot. So now a robot is able to do any job that the human being is able to do. Or you can even put on the headsets, the AR headsets, and you control the robot, or you see what the robot sees, and you are able to guide the robot. So that's why I say kind of replacing humans. But humans will always have an upper hand when it comes to this type of things, because we're the ones who are creating the technology at the at the end of the day. But unfortunately, most of the low-skilled jobs are the ones that will easily be replaced by such tasks, because now AR will make things much easier, and when you include robotics, it will make even much easier. So now you just need only maybe 3 people or 4 people in order to do a labor-intensive task. Okay. Our future lies in a new worldview. How I see us integrating into the 4IR is us as a society and as a community embracing the technology. We at Saibono, I work at Saibono, by the way, in case, yeah, I didn't mention that. At Saibono, we have programs that we run in order to build confidence in kids and also adults, confidence in technology, so that they can be confident in using the technology to their advantage, and to basically use the technology to advance themselves instead of just using the technology to work. We run after-school programs where we teach kids to develop technology. We teach kids to create arts using technology, to basically explore their ideas through using technology. It's really important that as a society, we don't sit back and say technology is replacing us. We need to basically ourselves in order to keep up with all the technologies that are happening within this 4IR revolution. We need to use, basically my view is to use I see it as an add-on into our lives, basically whereby we use the technology to enhance us. For an example, I'd like to use what Elon Musk is using with his the Brain Project is for us to be able to like brain implant that can basically help your brain perform as an AI would be able to perform. So in that way, we're basically adding on to ourselves, and we are the ones who are controlling the technology. So I like that little concept. I really believe that we should use technology as an advantage to us and build so that we can be able to build ourselves and build societies. And if we do it in that specific way or in that direction, I really believe that the 4IR revolution will basically benefit majority of actually everyone within our societies and communities. Lastly, I think that's about it from me. Thank you very much for your time, and if you guys have any questions, you can ask.
That was very interesting. Thank you very much. There's been a lot of talk about AI and machines taking over the work industry and taking over people's jobs. What is your take on that?
Yes. It's inevitable that the technology is moving forward, and we need to also upgrade ourselves. So in terms of it taking over everything, it's taking over things that we basically are redundant, things that are not really needed. As a human race, we need to upgrade ourselves too, because we are a constantly evolving species. So we can't be stuck in one level. So as we are developing these advanced technologies, we also as a human race need to advance ourselves. So I believe as long as you upgrade your skills and you see what's out there, there will be many more jobs that will be opened due to us not being able to do, or due to us replacing all those hard working jobs or all those high labor intensive jobs with things that like robotics or AI. So that's my basic perspective when it comes to that that topic. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you very much for your answer. But I think just another question. How do you know that you're giving too much data to these AI systems that we're having currently on social media?
Yeah. There also something that's really tricky to manage. But I believe that the data that you are giving, you don't have to really, let's say, especially on social media, you have to basically have an inner self-control on how you post things or what you do. So how would you know if you're giving a lot of data? I would know whereby now I am now posting, let's say, my areas, and there is options on your social media accounts. Usually you'd be able to post for like publicly, and also you'd be able to post for a friends list or privately. So as a human being yourself, you should know what you want to share out there with the world. So if you'd like to share your address and everything with the world, then that's the risk you're putting yourself into. So those type of information, you can choose to make them only available to the friends list, or to make it very private so that no one knows. Even Instagram accounts can be privated, Facebook accounts can be privated to only people that you want them to see. So the control is there. You only lose control when it becomes a bigger scale thing, like a company losing your data or a server being hacked. So that's where you only lose control. Otherwise, you have full control over the features that are on the app, and you should take full advantage of all the privacy features within that app.
All right, thank you very much for your answer. I don't want to debate your answer. However, what about privacy? I mean, there's this green app that we are all using, but once you talk to somebody about you wanting to buy something, you now start to see adverts on social media about that thing that you said you want to buy on that green app. So is there privacy? Are we entitled to our privacy for the data that we talk about in our green app?
I would say if there is like the only way I would like to put it, I also wouldn't like, because I believe that there's not a lot of privacy out there, because they have companies have full access to whatever app you're using. They have full access to the data that they collect through via that app. So in that terms, I believe you don't have that much privacy. You just have to put your trust on that company that it will not maliciously use your data. Also believe that you should also be able to take care of yourself. So let's say the way when you are talking about something and Google overhears you, and all of a sudden you see an ad that relates to whatever you're talking about. I would suggest that if you really don't want to get that type of convenience, because this technology is for convenience, AI listening to you and trying to find what you like and all those things, they are for convenience, and also they benefit companies whereby they advertise to you. So if you don't want to get that convenience, I would suggest that whenever you are around, let's say, a technology that you feel like it would listen to you, you do your best to just mute the mic, switch off the mic, or like most computers have camera blockers. So you can find a blocker that you can block your camera so that it does not unknowingly spy on you, or without you knowing, and it spies on you. So those type of steps, that's the steps you can take for yourself Also, in terms of like privating your things and all those, privating your information, those are the steps that you can take in order to protect your data. But otherwise, when it comes to the data being available to the company and what the company does with the data, that's another situation.
All right, thank you very much for your informative session. We really learned quite a lot from you. We're gonna head over to our next speaker before the ad break, and after the ad break, our speaker will actually have his session.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I have a question that I've asked.
All right, cool. Go ahead, Treasure.
You can check my comment.
Are going to Prof. Barry Wolaski, who is a popular keynote speaker and offers advice as an independent software engineering consultant. He is the founder of Timolohong Digital Innovation Precinct. Prof. Wolaski. Oh, sorry, we will be showing a video.
Hello. My name is Professor Barry Wolaski. I'm at Wits University, and I'm the Professor of Software Engineering in the School of Electrical and Information Engineering at Wits. And I'm also the head of something called the Joburg Center for Software Engineering at Wits. And I'm the founder of the university's Timolohong Digital Innovation Precinct. And today I'm going to speak about something that I think people talk a lot about, but how many of us really know what it means? And that's the fourth industrial revolution. What is 4IR? So let's go through some definitions of what 4IR is really about. Firstly, some people, when you ask them to define fourth industrial revolution, talk about a whole lot of technologies. It's like they've got a big jar of colored balls in it. Each ball is a technology: robotics, machine learning, virtual reality, 3D printing, big data, and it's all in the jar. And if you say, what's 4IR? They say it's all these things in this jar. And I wonder if that's a good definition, because the question I would ask then is, what goes in the jar and what isn't in the jar? Are there technologies that I've listed here that might be part of 4IR that aren't there? So is it just a bunch of technologies? I don't think that's a great way to define it. I think the other way people define it is that they talk about the first industrial revolution, which happened in the 1700s. And that was about when steam power was used to help do weaving and making cotton products. And then the second industrial revolution is all about using the power of electricity and mass production. And that was in about the beginning of the 20th century, about 1900 and a bit. And then we had the third industrial revolution, which was computers and IT, and that was in the 1970s and 80s. And now we have the fourth industrial revolution. And this means that we define our revolutions as drawing lines in the history of time. And who decided that there were only four industrial revolutions? Haven't there been 3 or 5 or 7? So it's quite a hard way to define it if we're drawing lines in the timeline of history. And in fact, a lot of these revolutions weren't discovered until long back and said, oh, things changed there, and that was an industrial revolution. And maybe we've just had one industrial revolution and we're still part of that same industrial revolution. So what I'm saying is that the definition, it doesn't make sense to just list technologies, and it also doesn't make sense to look at a timeline. So we need some other way to define this fourth industrial revolution. And what I like to do is look at some principles. So this came out of Germany in 2010, when some people looked at what the Germans were calling Industry 4.0. And they said, what makes up Industry 4.0? And they said there were 4 principles, and these principles all fit together to make one thing. So let's look at these 4 principles one at a time. The first is interconnection. It's the principle of things being connected to each other. So if we look at interconnection, we have the internet, and we all know about the internet, and what it really does is it connects people. So it's the internet of people. But then we've started to see in recent years something that's also an internet, but it's now connecting things. So the story I love telling is that maybe the Internet of Things is where your bathroom scale, your fridge, and the supermarket are all on the same internet. And it's possible for your bathroom scale, when you weigh yourself in the morning, to talk to your fridge, and your fridge to talk to the supermarket, and they all decide together that you're going to be put on diet because you're a bit overweight. And that could be, and that's the Internet of Things. They have their own internet. And then people say, well, we could also have an Internet of everything, where the Internet of people and the Internet of things are all interconnected. So by interconnecting everything, we are able to share information, to collaborate and reach common goals. To do that, we need to have common standards to communicate, and we need to think a lot about cybersecurity. So that's the internet or interconnection. That's the first principle. The second principle that I'd like to look at is the principle of decentralized decision making. So how would something like a self-driving car work? If a car drives itself, have you got a supercomputer sitting in that car that makes all the decisions about everything the car is going to do? No, it wouldn't work like that. It would work in terms of a hierarchy, in terms of levels of decision making. So your brake system might be autonomous. It might be able to make decisions about when and how to stop the car. And it wouldn't have to refer to other parts of the car if it saw for safety reasons it had to stop you. There could be another system that looked at traffic lights. And if it saw a red traffic light, it would make a decision to stop the car and would just give a command to the brakes, stop the car. So these 2 autonomous systems would work independently, but sometimes would have to collaborate. And building systems in these layers where you have higher level systems speaking to lower level systems, and those lower level systems being autonomous, they can make their own decisions, is another important principle. and it's how we deal with a very complex world. It's how the human body works. So your brain isn't controlling everything. A lot of things are happening automatically without your brain. So we call that decentralized decisions. And that's another of the four principles that I want to talk about. The third principle is called information transparency. Do things that are unsafe or difficult or boring for people to do. So that's the digital assistant. And the thing is, if we bring all of those four, that hierarchy of control, the information transparency or digital twins, and the digital assistant, and bring them all together and have them working together, then we have something very different from what we have in the world today. And in my mind, that starts to look like an industrial revolution. Now, the final thing I want to say is about what's the difference between evolution and revolution. So the world of digital has always evolved. It's always gone from this thing to always the beginning of the next in what exists now. So when smartphones were invented, we took a lot of things we did before we had smartphones and we evolved into smartphones. So it wasn't a revolution in the sense that we were doing things dramatically different, but we were using separate devices, packaged it into one device, and that became the smartphone. And that was an evolution. And skills have always evolved in the digital world as technology. A revolution with or robotics. Can a robot replace a person? And although the science fiction movies claim they do, I think there's still such a long way to go before we can have a genuinely intelligent machine as adaptable and as flexible as a human being. And the one thing that is very important in what humans do that's very hard to do is this idea of common sense. So you know, and you've always known that if you pour water on a table, it's going to flow off the table and land on the floor. If you drop something, it goes down. So common sense. We've never had to be taught those things, or we've learned it in a very painstaking way as we grow up. AI systems we have don't have general common sense. That's still one of the hardest things to do. So you can have AIs that make really silly mistakes. So for example, there was this system that the military designed to look at pictures taken from planes flying over fields to look if there were tanks, military in that field. And it was taught on a whole lot of pictures of fields with tanks and a whole lot of fields without tanks. And when it was tested on the stuff that was used for learning, could always find, say, in this picture there are tanks in the field, in this picture there are no tanks in the field. It seemed to be doing really well. And then the people who designed the military generals to
that was very by Prof. Wolowski. There was actually a point where he was talking about how the Internet of Things would essentially be your bathroom scale being connected to your fridge and your supermarket all on the internet, meaning that if you were gaining weight, your scale, your fridge, and the supermarket
The market would have a
and
conversation
putting
on
you on
putting
a
you on a
diet, which I
diet, which I
found
found
very
very
funny. But
funny,
it's
but
actually
it's
quite
actually
true if
quite
you
true
think
if you
about
think
it.
about it.
He
He did
did
elaborate on what exactly
exactly
4IR
4IR
is,
is, which
which
is something that we also discussed in yesterday's session. We weren't exactly sure what 4IR is. If, to say some of us did think that 4IR was robots taking over the world, but he did touch into what exactly 4IR is, which I found very informative and very interesting.
I think it's safe to say as the sessions go on, we're starting to learn more about 4IR and our knowledge is increasing.
Definitely.
Don't forget to communicate with us on Twitter. The hashtag is hashtag #RiseToVet. Share with us your workstations and how the session is going. We'd love to communicate with you guys.
Also, don't forget it's Rise with a Z. That's hashtag Rise Today with a Z. Also share where you're connecting from. Or if you're connecting from Gauteng, Limpopo, Durban, let us know. We're going to go into a break and we'll be back.
Just a minute.
Yes, you can. Welcome back from the break, and for now we're going to move into the hands-on sessions that we're supposed to continue yesterday, and we're actually doing them today. And for first speaker, we have Titi Marote. Miss Titi Marote she's an inspiration, guys. She's won a lot of hackathons. She's been, on a magazine, the Brainstorm magazine. She did a lot of things under the tech scene, and she's also a data scientist at Terraflow. She is the co-founder of Guardian Health. Miss Titi Marote, are you ready to present?
Yes, thank you so much for the beautiful intro. Just to confirm, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Cool. So, as Yolanda has already said, my name is Titi, and I am the co-founder and CEO, apparently, of Guardian Health. Cool. So cool, yeah. So I'm a data scientist and a data engineer. I'm a certified cloud architect. I'm a certified Neo4j database developer. I have an honors degree in big data analytics from Wits University, and I was honored to be part of the top 15 young geeks and the rising stars of 2020. So I'm gonna go straight to the point. So the first thing that I wanted to really touch on was, how does 4IR actually benefit healthcare? So as tech advances and we have greater and greater populations, and I think we can really understand this from the context of South Africa, for instance, where we've got a really large number of people. So as this advances, we really need to find easier ways of getting medical breakthroughs and development of treatments. Now, the digitization of medical records and digitization of communication channels will result in better and more effective medicines and healthcare. This can also help us now to manage chronic health conditions, to diagnose conditions faster, to develop and implement personalized treatments, monitor the patients remotely while they're at home. And all in all, this can really benefit and improve healthcare in South Africa, and the world as a whole. So why is 4IR important in Africa? So I think one of the things we definitely know is that if you've ever used a public clinic, you know how overcrowded it is at public clinics. And this, leads to so many problems, from nurse exhaustion to patients also not actually getting quality healthcare, but also just think about it from the COVID era now, where now you've got hundreds of people just standing in a queue waiting to be serviced, and they don't even know if they're actually going to receive the healthcare they need. So this is where now your resource planning actually comes in, which is, I think, one of the things that we've also managed to do as Guardian Health, we've managed to use our data science knowledge and our data engineering knowledge to actually now do resource planning for your public clinics, to do resource planning for health professionals. So we also have less resources. I mean, part of the overcrowding and all the other issues that we actually face really result from the fact that we do not have enough resources to be able to service everyone in a timely and more effective way. So technology now comes into play because now we can give better health infrastructure to people by using technology. Sometimes we might just need a software instead of having a physical device. You know, we can have a software that is able to diagnose, that is able to help to diagnose people much quicker. I mean, there are actually people that literally die of cancer, for instance, because the cancer was actually detected much later. So if we have ways where we can be able to detect some of those issues much earlier without the need to purchase a lot of huge devices that are extremely expensive, I think we would have really fought a battle right there. So we also have a high number of readmissions. We actually did some research on this and also actually worked with some data from KZN. And I think one of the things that we found as Guardian Health when we were actually starting was that we found that a lot of people actually don't go back for follow-up. So if you were admitted in hospital or if you went to a doctor, most people don't necessarily follow up when they're actually supposed to. So what this does is that it leads to a high number of readmissions of people, and also actually leads to higher mortality rates, because for most people, you only go to the doctor when it's absolutely necessary, when you feel like, okay, you know what, I'm really not doing great right now. You don't necessarily work on it from the first time that you feel like, you know what, I think something's tough. And I mean, we can really attribute that to the fact that most people actually lack the finances to have the luxury to just wake up and go to see a health professional. But that is something that needs to be addressed, because if we can reduce those numbers, we can actually be able to save quite a lot of money. So I think as Guardian Health, where we actually started, working on maternal health, and the problems that we were actually working on was the fact that a lot of women actually died during childbirth, and a lot of women also only find out about fetal abnormalities later on in their pregnancies. And this was one of the issues that we were actually finding out. I think there's been quite a lot of stuff in the news actually about women dying during childbirth, and that is such a big problem. If we can have early detection of those issues, if we can detect that you're going to get a cesarean section, we can then be able to assist health professionals to help patients on time. So now, utilizing 4IR in health. So currently, what we do is that we are about actually now improving accessibility of healthcare in Africa. So we do that by allowing patients to be able to book appointments that can be virtual as well. And this allows you to follow up from the comfort of your own home. We've actually added some really cool features now where we have things such as you taking a picture of, let's say you've got a skin problem, you can take a picture of your eczema or your ringworm or whatever the case. And this can be evaluated remotely by your health professional, and they can actually tell whether or not your medication is working. If you're a high blood pressure patient, you can take your high blood pressure from home. The health professionals are able to tell if medication is actually working for you by checking those things and then maybe increasing the dosage or allowing you to go in if it's not working out. And so this now actually allows health professionals to monitor their chronic patients timely. So if something is going wrong during the time that you're taking your prescription until your next checkup, they're able to monitor such things and give you the health care that you need, right? We have after hours telehealth. Most people don't have the luxury to be at home, to take a day off, from work. So this really helps a lot of people to not have that excuse of, oh, I didn't have time, because now we're basically giving you more time to access healthcare at the comfort of your home, at whatever time that is comfortable with you. We've got clinical notes and digital prescriptions. Now, allowing patients to own their digital records is actually going to make patients to be part of the journey. And I think this is very important, because if you allow somebody to be part of that journey, to own their healthcare, they become more active in terms of how am I doing, what treatments am I actually getting. And it also allows an information channel where people actually understand what medications am I taking, and we're really using Guardian Health as well to actually have a channel of information where we give patients and we empower patients with information that is verified by health professionals. And this is going to help a lot of people to understand what is happening to them and what they can do to basically make sure that they're healthier. What foods should you eat? What kind of exercise should you do? Sometimes the most basic information is just that reminder that you need on a daily. So we are utilizing 4IR in Guardian Health by having things such as early detections of cesarean birth, early detections of fetal abnormalities. We use optimization algorithms to give us optimal routes for health for community health workers to be able to access the homes they need to visit, making sure that they visit those homes in the most optimal way that also actually reduces the load on their end, but also making sure that they actually now service patients optimally as well. We do a lot of resource planning where now they can be able to make decisions in terms of how do we, with the resources that we have and the time that we have, how do we make sure that we use these resources optimally to be able to service the patients that we have? How do we forecast the amount of people that we're going to get so that we can plan ahead for that as well? How do we forecast the amount of patients we're going to have in every division of our clinic to make sure that we know that we have enough resources to be able to service those people? And if we don't, there is now visibility in terms of actually telling patients that, hey, maybe you should come back, or maybe you should come on a Friday instead of coming on a Wednesday. And that is the beauty now of actually digitalizing most of these things. We use natural language processing as well to allow people to access information, but also to book appointments, because most people have social media platforms. So if we can allow chatbots where they can actually book, then you can use your free WhatsApp data to actually access Guardian Health. So as I mentioned, that we do have virtual appointments. We have your clinical notes, your prescriptions. We have your remote monitoring where, you can send that to your doctor and they can look at it and they can tell you if you need to go in, if the medication is working. And so that evaluation now becomes much easier. So I think one of the things that I was told when I was asked to do this was to talk about how do people then start to get into this and sort of getting into whatever field. I'm going to talk in a more general sense, like how is it that you can start using your data science to be able to tackle issues in whatever sector that you are passionate about. How do you do this? Even if you are somebody who's a tech person, but maybe you do not have data science information, how do you start to maybe now also implement some machine learning in your agriculture platform or whatever the case? So currently what we do use as Guardian Health, we use a lot of machine learning, we use mathematical optimization, we use computer vision, analytics, natural language processing, and we also use cloud computing. So I'm just going to go through what the machine learning process looks like. So when we actually started, as I mentioned, we started with maternal health, and I remember we had two models, two deep learning models where we were actually now detecting fetal abnormalities, and we were also giving you what the risk of you as a pregnant mother to get a cesarean section actually is. So generally the process of machine learning starts from data acquisition, right? Because you need to have the data. In the case of health, a lot of times actually data is quite a big problem. I mean, as somebody who's in the industry, it's extremely horrible to actually get good data. So you're most likely not going to get good, clean data, because sometimes in order to have an accurate model, you need to have a large pool of data, right? So sometimes you might need to start with something and then start collecting and actually have data collection as part of the process. For some people, you might be wanting to solve a problem where there's really no data at all, or maybe the data is really not usable. You might need to be the person that starts the journey to say, how do we now collect the data? How do we make sure? And this is something that a lot of people in the industry are now doing, to say, as a company, as company ABC, how do we now make sure that we collect our data in such a way that it is much more usable and all of that stuff? Because sometimes people were not really collecting data in a way that is usable, or maybe the effort to really clean it up is maybe too expensive for them. So data acquisition is one of the most important things ever, because if we actually had data for most of the things, we would have solved so many problems. So that's the first part. You acquire your data. But as I mentioned, a lot of time, the data that you're going to receive is going to just be some blob where it's really not clean, it's not usable. So you spend quite a lot of time here where you spend your time actually cleaning the data. So data cleaning, it requires you now to check if your data makes sense. For instance, you might be dealing with data that has to do with people in your community, right? If somebody is 200 years old, that's probably an error. So you need to make sure that your data actually makes sense for whatever field that you're working in. Does it make sense that somebody has this particular statistic? Is this some form of error? You need to check how much missing data do you have? Does it make sense to keep most of the roles that have a lot of missing data? Can you afford to drop those? Or can you afford to fill them up with some other values or whatever? These are now the decisions that you'd have to make sure that your data is usable. You now make sure that you check your data, you make sure that everything makes sense, you make sure that you don't have any data that doesn't make sense and all of that stuff. And so what you then do after that is that you now want to choose a machine learning model now that you actually would like to use. This really depends. Choosing it is not always a first time thing. For a lot of people actually try out different models, and then after that you see what the accuracies are, but it has to make sense, because if, for instance, you don't have linear data, you don't want to use linear regression, right, for instance. So this needs to make sense in terms of what your data is, and it's something that you learn as you sort of build more. You'll learn to understand that, okay, because I'm dealing with this sort of data set, this is maybe the first model that I should be trying out, and whatever, it doesn't make sense to use this model. So really it's something that will require quite a bit of research and a bit of learning as well. But that's usually the process where you can build a few models and then just try them out. And I'm actually going to tell you guys about online tools that you guys can try out to also quickly build a model in like a few minutes or whatever, and just test your stuff and then just see if it makes sense, or if it's giving some form of accuracy that at least is promising, that you can maybe now start tweaking it and everything. So you want to now build your data set. But before that, you can really do a lot of stat stuff as well, where you can do forecasting, where you can find some stats numbers as well, to just see if everything makes sense, to see what insights are you getting from your data. And this is really, really important, to understand your data in a way that you really, your plots, your visualizations, does your data make sense? What are the insights you're getting from your data? What is your data telling you, and all of that stuff before you even build. So the machine learning part a lot of times is like the last part, or sometimes the fastest part actually. So the part that is really important is where you acquire data, you clean it, you do a lot of insights, you find out what is your data telling you, what are the trends that you're seeing in your data. Are there any trends? If you're dealing with a data set, for instance, that's talking about sales, when are we selling the most? Are we selling the most in summer? Are we selling the most in winter? And all of that stuff. So there's a lot of information you can get by just plotting your stuff and actually using normal statistics. Then after that, you can then move on to your machine learning stuff, and then do that. And also, just to mention here, sometimes you don't always have to plug in your machine learning. Sometimes it's not a problem that necessarily requires a model, because sometimes we find that a lot of people would just take machine learning and throw it in there because it sounds smart. When you tell people, oh, we have a machine learning model, it has to make sense. And then after that, you then go through a process of evaluating the model. So generally, you would split your data set when you now want to train your model. You split it into a train, test, and validation set. And then after that, you want to evaluate your model. But you can also now start using your validation model to now start improving your accuracies and everything. But I think one of the most important things is actually that last part, because a lot of times in school, I was not taught how to deploy a model. So a lot of times you work in a notebook, and all of that stuff. But now when you are in the real world, or if you now want to plug in your machine learning model into like a platform that you're building, whatever, the deployment part is really important, because that's the part that makes your stuff to actually be usable to everyone. That's the part now where we say, now our model is out there, we're hosting our model, and now somebody else can actually access our model and actually use it to do whatever predictions they would like to do. So that's a really important part. There to deploy your model, you might want to look at things such as your Google Cloud, you might want to look at AWS or whatever you prefer to use to make sure that you can deploy your models and then you can actually start serving them and actually using them to get your predictions or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So how do you then get started if, let's say, that you're somebody who just wants to start trying things out? So the most important things here, if you guys can actually see, I have 4 points, and I actually did not talk about machine learning at all, because I think it's really important that you understand that it's really, really important to understand the data cleaning part, the data visualization part, and actually the understanding what your data is saying, the insights, before you can go to machine learning. And that is why I did not actually put it here. When you want to now get started with maybe something that is data related, the first thing that you might want to do is to familiarize yourself with sites that provide free data sets such as Kaggle. I mean, they have really nice competition, and you're going to see other people that are trying to learn as well. And you can also get free data sets there. Then there's also UCI as well. They also have really great data sets, very nicely organized. So you can go there and get data sets in whatever industry that you are looking to get data from. Then the first part now that you would need to learn is how to clean your data, how to understand and get your data into a usable format. How do you now make sure that your data is actually usable, understanding your data, plotting your data, visualizing your data, using stats to forecast and get some insights from the data, and actually understanding that, does it make sense? Sometimes you might need to do a little bit of industry research if you're working in an industry that you're not familiar with. For you to understand if your data makes sense, you might need to do a little bit of research to understand that. So for instance, I'm not a health person, but we've had to learn some of those things. We've had to look for industry expertise to understand if whatever we were actually looking at made sense or not. So the tools that you can use to get started, Google Colab is a good one because it's an online resource and it's free, and you can store your data sets in your Google Drive as well, which means that if your laptop is really not that great, it doesn't have any impact at all on that. You can be able to use Google Colab to start building. It's in a notebook format, and you can use that instead of installing Jupyter notebooks on your platform. I love Google Cloud, so you can use whatever you want. But then this is also something that would be great to use when you want to now start deploying your models after you've built. But I guess that's not necessarily like a start per se. But if you want to start building some machine learning models, scikit-learn is a really, really great one, because literally a few lines and it just builds your model for you. Like sometimes even 3 lines, and you can already start training your model. So this is a great library to learn. If you're starting and maybe your Python and you're starting out, it would be a great one after you've done all your data cleaning and you've got some clean data and you want to just see how the different models react to your data. This would be a great experimentation one. It's really not a great library for production. A lot of times when people want to put their things into production, then they go to things such as your TensorFlow, your PyTorch and whatever. But if you just want to do some experimentation quickly before you build whatever you're going to end up putting into production, then scikit-learn is a great one to use. Then for data visualization, Data Studio is free and it's great as well. You can be able to visualize the data if you want to present to people and you've got a data set and there are really important insights that you feel are really important for you guys to make your decisions or whatever the case. Then Data Studio is a really, really great visualization tool as well, and it takes data from multiple sources. So that would be great. And when you're playing around in your Collaboratory, Seaborn, Matplotlib are good libraries to also use to build plots and to visualize your data in your notebook as well. And yeah, guys, so that is it from me. Thank you so much for listening, and you guys can visit our website on guardianhealth.io. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Tieti. That was very informative and very interesting. I think one question that I do have in mind is, do you think Africa is ready for video consultations, especially with doctors? Because we all know that we are more comfortable having a doctor there with us and testing us physically. So do you think Africa is ready for video consultations?
The really great thing about tragedy is that it forces you to be ready. So I mean, COVID literally forced people to think in a different way. So maybe before COVID, people would have been very hesitant, but now the conversation is a little bit different. You know, even when we talk to the doctors that we have on Guardian Health, the conversation is different because everybody saw the need to have this, but also because we generally have a lot of problems. It is really, it's almost like we need it in order to make sure that our healthcare system is actually more improved. So I think we're getting there. It's not everybody that is going to be comfortable to actually do it. Like, for instance, I usually prefer to go in for a first appointment. So for some people that could be the case. But for follow-ups, maybe, you know, it's something that it obviously depends per person. It's not everybody that is ready for that. But it's something that I think we're moving at a rapid rate to go into that direction.
Thank you very much.
So, how can we connect with you with Guardian Health?
So you can actually, you can email me on tt@guardianhealth.io, but we also do have a Twitter page, Guardian Health 5, and you can also find us on Facebook. Guardian Health is at Guardian Health as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Titi.
Cool.
Very interesting session.
I think that is a very interesting session, and I'm definitely looking forward to what solutions the students will be coming up with for the challenge. So, yeah.
I think we can go to a quick break.
Please sit there. Nice day. Welcome back. Jumping into the engineering part of the hands-on session, we have Mr. William Faulkner, who's going to be taking us into 4IR and the computer-aided drafting industry. Mr. William.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Good, thanks to you.
I'm good. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Unfortunately, I can't see my profile picture, but I'm basically at home due to this COVID. So I'm just going to quickly jump into this because it's a very, very, very long story. So I did try to just cut my presentation to something short. Let me just present this.
Are you ready to share your screen?
Oh yes, I am ready.
Please do.
Okay. Let's do it here. And I don't know if everybody can see my screen.
Not yet. Yes, we can.
All right. So
perfect.
Thank you. So basically, I'm the founder of Urula Academy. Actually it's Urula. It comes in two divisions. So basically, what we deal with creative, web development, branding, and social media marketing. And then the other division, which is Urula Academy, we deal with.
Sorry to disturb. Your volume is low, William.
My volume is low.
Yes, I don't know if I'm the only one.
We can hear him clearly, sir. You may continue, William.
Okay, it's fine. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Wait, okay, sorry, Thokozani. All right. So with Rural Academy, what we're trying to do, just a quick one with you guys. Uh, we trying to focus on additive manufacturing. Now, additive manufacturing. I'm just gonna just jump this slide real quick. Now, what is additive manufacturing? So additive manufacturing is pretty much 3D printing, to put it in short. It's a way of producing components in a very quick way, using different type of materials depending on what product that you're trying to produce. Now, the reason why we want to introduce this is because as everybody was listening yesterday, as a country, we actually lack in critical thinking. The art aspect in schools, whether it's high school, primary school, or TVET college or university, is pretty much being ignored. And that is causing serious problems because that way we are unable to produce anything of our own. We have to always import products or parts or anything that has to do with technology. So with 3D printing, it actually makes things easy. I mean, kids can actually produce their own toys, for example. In universities, you can create prototypes. For example, prosthetics are quite expensive right now. With 3D printing, we can actually improve those sectors. So how does 3D printing work? So 3D printing, you choose the type of material that you're going to be using. And then secondly, what you do is you develop this using CAD software. For example, we have AutoCAD, we have a few more other products which I will actually mention as we go by. And then the second process is to design and modeling the simulation. So that is also done in the software where we create what we call an STL file. Now, an STL file is a file format that we use when we're doing 3D printing, pretty much similar to when you're saying MP3 or MP4 or JPEG or PNG. Then after that, we go to material processing and layering. Now, the material processing and layering is whereby now we actually feed that STL file into the 3D printer. And the 3D printer will read that file and actually produce the final project or final product. Now, how will this improve, or which sectors will this improve? So with this, we can apply this 3D printing in automotive, in aerospace, biomedical, consumer goods, and many others. You can see I just gave out a few examples of things that were 3D printed. So this is actually a chassis of a car. As you can see, it's actually 3D printed. It has this plastic material. And then the second image is actually a soap holder, which you can actually put in a bathroom for holding soap. And the third picture is actually a 3D printed microdrone, which is very, very interesting. And I would love to touch base on that as we go forward too. How does one go about AM? So naturally, if you want to do 3D printing, you have to create the 3D model using 3D software. As I said, usually there are few softwares out there like Autodesk Fusion 360, which is the one that I use. We have Blender, we have ZBrush, which actually goes even further, whereby now you can even create characters and 3D print those the characters. However, 3D printing for beginners, you really don't have to have skills like professional skills for you to use the software. I mean, you can go as basic as you can, for starters. And there's tons and tons and tons of tutorials on the internet where you can just go and just watch a tutorial and just follow through until you get. But at the end of the day, I would still emphasize the fact that this really needs critical thinking. It needs you to have a way of solving problems. So you need to have some sort of artistic way of thinking, or if you see a problem and you can actually just sketch it real quick, or have someone who is an artist to help you. So you don't really have to be, or you don't really have to have a diploma or a degree to actually do additive manufacturing. Okay, just put that. Now, when you prepare these models, after you prepare the models, the CNC machine or the 3D printers, they use something called G code. Now, G code is a little bit mathematical because it uses your axis, your mathematical axis, which is your y and your x, y, and z axis, in order for it to create the 3D model. So what are the gaps and needs for this? When we looked at it, we have system integration and software implementation, which will go down to material development and evaluation. Then it will also give you design methodologies and design and standards. Modeling and monitoring control processes, that's also important. Certification, if of course, if you're in TVET colleges or if you're in university, but since Urula also wants to go, we also want to go into your high schools from grade 9 to grade 12. We can give out achievement certificates. The material. Okay, so the material for this, it's very simple. The material is quite affordable. In most cases, we use PCB, which is a multiple plastic. There's pretty much a lot of companies that are actually manufacturing this and or importing this, and I feel like this won't be a problem for people to actually get these resources. And as Urula, we've also worked with academic solutions and for TVET College, Technical College. And they also have a fabrication room whereby if you can communicate with them or try to partner with them, they can actually allow students to actually go experiment using their fabrication room. Education and training. So while numerous additive manufacturing education resources and training materials are available, we still see no ready, sorry about that. While numerous, so we still see this being taken very low as Urula. I mean, for us, we know that 3D printing is actually third industrial revolution and not even actually part of fourth industrial revolution. 3D printing has been existing for the past 30 years, if I can count. So I feel like we really need to take full advantage of additive manufacturing, recruit new generations of students, develop proper design tools, and actually train them or help them to actually get those ideas up and running. Recommendation. For my recommendation would say material. If you can, like I said, there's pretty tons and tons of information on the internet for you to actually find what type of materials that are needed for you to do this process, the type of design methods that are needed, which is your tools and your simultaneous functionals. The product design. Product design is pretty much also important, whereby you need an artist that can actually draw the product for you, or try and imagine your design to say, okay, I can actually put this on paper. And then the modeling part, of course, you need, I wouldn't actually say robust per se, but yeah, you really need to understand basic mathematics, basic physics, which of course, when you learn basic physics, you know the type of stresses that are going into these materials. And of course, the prediction of microstructures, fatigue properties resulting to the extreme heating and cooling rates in additive manufacturing. Since you deal a lot of we deal with a lot of plastic, so we really need to know how fast that plastic cools off, or how quick we need to adjust the temperature in order for us to speed up the process of 3D printing the project. sensing and controls. Okay, sensing and controls, that's pretty much, I'm just going to skip that. It takes a lot of technical stuff. Um, okay, so I just go to the conclusion. So the conclusion, the process of joining materials to make projects from this 3D dimensional models. It's actually it actually builds these things layer by layer. Let me just show you a quick video. Um, just stop this for a second. Just share something else just to show you how 3D printer actually works.
No, no, go back
Okay, I don't know, can everybody see? Hello?
Hi, William. Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm just going to play this quick video just to show you an example on how the layering works. So this was an example of a 3D tube that we actually made students to make while we're doing the presentation at the TVET college. So pretty much this is how a 3D printer works, and this is how it actually looks like. So as you can see, it goes side to side from X to Y to Z to actually create this tube. And I'm sure you can actually see that there's some residue over there, just to show you that the plastic is actually being melted. And actually this plate over here is also heated up. So when I was talking about controlling the temperature, we have to control the temperature not only on the nozzle, but also on the surface of where we're going to be 3D printing this. And if we move forward, you'd actually see that this 3D printer actually has a door. Goes right here. You see the 3D printer has a door. That is also important because we need to control the room temperature. So if there's too much air going in, the plastic would harden really quick, hence resulting to a very bad product. Okay.
Why do you do that?
Share my presentation.
Boss.
You just booked that $5,000.
He's hitting some notes.
Yeah, why don't you guys want $5,000? Lunch on you today.
It's not in. $5,000. It's a lot of money. But it's not that serious. Okay, where's the tech money?
There's money in the tax base, I tell you.
It's not in.
We should start getting the millions now. We should start publishing.
But you like drinking. Hey, do you know that you help?
Okay, so as I was saying, our conclusion. I'm sorry, my
We didn't win much.
You know what's the problem?
Did you hear what she said? Garden help. Did we win garden help money?
Even that, we didn't even touch from the other money.
And the thing is, we only started getting money after we left, like after we started participating as the three of us, me, Christine, and Carol. Yeah, with the guys, they were just
Okay.
exactly.
So yeah, so the traditional subtractive machine technique relies on removal of material method, which trust me, when we're doing CNC machining, it actually takes time. It has many advantages over traditional manufacturing processes. There are seven processes of additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing is on the verge of shifting from pure rapid prototyping technology, which means we can actually create an actual mini prototype that you can actually present to a company if you want to show them whatever that you want to produce. Manufacturing metal components with virtually no geometric limitations or tools. So that means you really have the freedom of creating pretty much anything when it comes to 3D printing or additive manufacturing as these big industries know it. Now, just to show you how the software looks like, I actually did a lampshade that I wanted to show you guys yesterday. so that I can at least from here I can actually give out a certain project for you guys. I'll definitely send you all the instructions on how to download the software.
I sent you an email on that actually.
The car one, the machine learning one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be the
So
last thing.
what you're looking at here is a CAD software called Vision 360. You can actually get it for educational purposes, or you can download it for free if you want to use it for non-commercial use, or if you're a hobbyist. As you can see here, I did a 3D lampshade. Now with this, just as I was saying, as you can see, this is a pretty much ready product. So I can actually 3D print this and actually mass produce it.
It's 3D printing.
As simple as that.
There's a question on
Just make
the
it 15 minutes.
15 minutes. This guy wasn't supposed to be doing
It's at the bottom there. So pretty much with the software you can build, you can cut whatever that you want. You can see it's pretty user friendly. Pretty much straightforward if you want to create a sketch, if you want to extrude. So for my challenge for you guys, I would actually would love you guys to create this little thing. Just go back to my PowerPoint presentation.
That's what I was thinking.
I'd definitely love you guys to create this little project. I'll definitely send it to you guys so that I mean with all the instructions, everything has been put, all the measurements are there, and yeah. So pretty much that's who we are, and that's what we'd love to help when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution. We are currently working on a competition where kids are able to design and fabricate a drone, which means building, assembling, and actually programming a drone which can be driven using VR goggles or first view pilot. So thank you so much, guys, for your time, and I hope we. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you'd like to ask me, I'm pretty much ready right now. So yeah, that's who we are.
Thank you so much, Mr. William. We do have a few questions. One question I want to start off with is, what is your take on people using 3D printers to print weapons? We do know that weapons do come with numbers that you can track. So what happens if a person uses a 3D printer to print a weapon?
All right. Basically, to be honest with you, that's a very nice question, and I would like to emphasize on that. Yes, you can build weapons using 3D printing. It actually takes a lot of skills and a lot of research, and I believe I believe as people we can actually come up with certain policies and certain safety measures that we can implement in order for such situations not to happen. Uh, but at the same time, I wouldn't tell people that they should be limited to this because so far we only have one company that's manufacturing weapons in South Africa, which is Denel. And with this, if people would actually come up with great designs, they would actually submit those prototypes to Denel, and Denel would actually give out those policies to say, okay, we'll help you build this weapon, but we need to follow these certain protocols. So that would definitely be my take when it comes to creating weapons. I mean, we hardly produce anything in South Africa. I was actually trying to get a PCB the other time. A PCB is actually a circuit board where you can actually put those little chips and components and program it to do whatever functions. And I went through everywhere on the internet. I couldn't even find one company that, in fact, I actually found one company that is based in Cape Town that does PCBs, which is circuitry and design and map out those circuitries. But if we keep being afraid of trying to be as creative as we can in any industry, whether it becomes weaponry, whether it's rocketry, whether it's health, whether it's motoring, manufacturing, so long we follow the protocols, or we partner with companies that actually regulate these things. Yes.
Are there any risks involved with 3D printing?
Uh, with instructions, with the guide, with no, I would definitely say there is no risks. It's pretty straightforward. Even when you purchase a 3D printer from as a home user, you actually see for yourself that this machine is actually not as bad as people say, or if there are any saying out there to say 3D printer is dangerous. Yes, the 3D printer deals with high temperatures that I can say. It's enclosed in most cases. It's like a microwave. When you open it, it'll stop, and if you close the door, it'll continue. So yes, those machines, those 3D printers are actually designed around those safety measures.
All right, cool. Are there any disadvantages of using 3D printing?
Yes, there are disadvantages. The disadvantages, it depends on what type of 3D printer that you're gonna purchase. If you purchase a 3D printer that is open, because there are open 3D printers. Let me just try and give you an example of the types of 3D printers. Just, 1 second. All right. Just say 3D print.
Are you winning, sir?
Oh, I'm definitely winning. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to go really quick on the internet just to give out the types and the ones that I feel that they would actually understand what I'm talking about.
Mr. William, we just like to remind our watchers that we are on Twitter, so don't forget to use the hashtag RiseTVET. That's Rise with the Z on Twitter. Show us your workspace. Let us know what you've learned so far and how exciting it is to learn more about 4IR and how excited you are about the challenges that are coming up. We will be discussing the challenges. That is Rise to Vet on Twitter. That's Rise with a Z.
All right. I don't know if you guys can see 3D printers there on your side.
Yes, we can.
Oh yes. All right. So as you can see, I'll just talk about the ones on top. As you can see, we have two types. We have actually two types here. We have, like, for example, this one is flash wash. See, this one over here is actually enclosed. So this is the best 3D printers that I would recommend. And then we have these ones on the side, like this one over here. Or should I just say first one? This one that says quality. And so you see, these ones are the ones. I'll say these ones are quite. They're not the best 3D printers. They have lots of disadvantages. You can't really control the room temperature. They're too open. That means you can easily touch the hot plate or you can touch the hot plastic. But at the same time, if you can actually see that the ones that are enclosed are actually, the price is actually higher than the ones that are open. So when it comes to safety and when it comes to disadvantages, it will actually depend on the type of quality of the 3D printer you're buying. I would actually recommend FlashForge, and I actually recommend MechaBot. MechaBot is actually one of the best 3D printing producers so far. They're based in America, and they produce the best 3D printers. As you can actually see in there, you can actually see an engine part being 3D printed.
Do you see 3D printing being valuable in the educational system?
100%. 100%. Let me just debunk this for you. For example, I believe some of you are parents here. Imagine if your child can actually produce his or her own toys in the comfort of their own home. Imagine students coming up with solutions as quick as yesterday. If they see, or a tap at home has a handle is broken, and you can easily 3D print that handle. Your car part is broken. You don't really have to go purchase that. You can actually 3D produce it. So it has a huge advantage when if this is introduced, not only in TVET colleges, not only in universities, but also in law schools.
Okay, thank you. Excitement for that question on whether 3D printing can be valuable in the educational system actually got me excited as well. I was very excited to hear how you'd answer that with the way you responded to it. And I think your response was very valuable. I think it would be a lot easier for us to print things that we need around the house, as we find at sometimes we do break things, certain things, and it would be great to just print it there and then and have a solution to our problems without having worrying to go out there and actually buy something.
True, absolutely. And not only that, but it also breaks the barrier of the creativity part. Remember that even if you do have a 3D printer, but if you don't have critical thinking, if you don't have that vision in your head where you can picture things in your head and say, I would love my cup to look like this instead of like this, then it so we need to as much as we emphasize in the fourth industrial revolution, we also need to emphasize the fact that we need creativeness here. We need to also push the creativeness side of things. We also need to help the creative side of the education sector in order for us to actually achieve these things. It really doesn't matter whether you're doing uh, uh, data handling. It doesn't matter whether you're doing 3D printing. It doesn't matter whether you're doing programming. It doesn't. It all goes back to critical thinking. Are we creative enough to actually tackle fourth industrial revolution?
Interesting. Interesting stuff. I mean, earlier on we had somebody from health who was presenting. Do you see it being integrated into other industries besides just engineering?
Yes. It can integrate. The last presentation was talking about data. With data and 3D printing, everything, it all goes together. And if we can have data analysts telling us that yeah, this is what's happening. For example, let's just for argument's sake, let's say we go into aeronautics. We try to produce an airplane or a jumbo jet. With the data analysts, they would actually give us the correct data to say, look, usually the wind speed in South Africa is like this. The weather is always like this, and one, two, three, and so forth. We take that data and build that model around the data set that we just got. And of course, if we include machine learning, it becomes even easier because now with artificial intelligence, we can actually get accurate designs to say, okay, we need to design our wings in this manner, or we need to design the front in this manner. So yes, everything that everybody that's here today, everything that has been presented from yesterday until today, we can collaborate to actually make one thing.
And what would you say is the future of 3D printing, especially in Africa?
To be honest, uh, when I did my research, I would say we're pretty much behind, very much behind. Like I said, We actually like 30 years behind, but that doesn't stop us from creating the interest. That doesn't stop us from building interest. You see, the problem is building interest. Not that these things don't exist. These things have been existing way longer, but the interest. We have companies that just 3D print. There are companies that 3D print that I personally have worked with before, you know, and they just have that information. I mean, they just have it, and they don't share it with the outside world. I mean, because there's money to be made. But if we can democratize those things, and partner with these companies and tell them that our students need this type of knowledge. You need to recruit people. How are you going to recruit people if people are not even aware that these things exist? You know, right now I was talking to my partner, and to say that the problem with fourth industrial revolution doesn't really start in TVET college, doesn't really start in university. Once you finish school, you should be knowing what you're going to be doing in university. So the problem really starts back in high school. We still have old educators that are not even tech ready. How do we fix that? How do we build interest? I think that's one of the major topics that, as everybody, as we are meeting, as we are doing these events, these are the type of topics that we really need to tackle first. How do we build interest? I can go out right now and try to grab any random person and say, "Come, I want you to teach. I want you to learn 3D designing." They're clueless about it. They don't have interest, because the right people that have this technology, or the right people that have this information, they're not giving it out. So where do I see South Africa, or as an African continent in the future, when it comes to 3D printing? If we still hold on information to ourselves and not build interest, we will still be stagnant. We will still be coming back and meeting and talking about these things.
Interesting stuff. I mean, ladies, he mentioned quite a lot of things, that are in 3D printing. And how do you guys feel that we are 30 years behind in terms of 3D printing, especially in Africa?
Me, it's quite challenging to see because as a continent, we should move forward in technology, and the restrictions from people who do know this and do have this is actually saddening to see because we struggle to move forward. One thing that he did say that I found to be motivating is when he challenged us to actually be interested in being creative and looking forward to building new things and using 3D printing and out of 3D printing as well. So yeah, the challenge is definitely something I'm going to take on.
You
And I do think there's like hope in future with how Africa or South Africa is going with technology. I feel like there is hope. We can catch up. We just need to start working now.
Interesting stuff. And who do we have for our next speaker? I mean, it's quite great. We've learned quite a lot today. Okay?
Quick question for everyone before I leave.
Okay.
Before engineering, before mathematics or physics, which one you think came first between art and engineering?
Engineering, art.
Humans started painting. Humans used to communicate through painting first.
Yes.
Can you imagine that if we could not do art, can you picture your house, how it looked like?
Definitely not.
Can you picture how a car would look like?
Very dull.
Without artists, we have nothing. An engineer is not the guy that actually draws the car. No, an engineer is the guy that puts in the parts.
Oh, definitely.
But before the car gets produced, it actually comes from the artist, the guy who actually imagined how the car needs to look like.
That is so true. I have to say, looking at everything we've been learning from yesterday and today, it seems like 4IR is not only limited to people in technology. It is a broad space for people from any background. You can be an artist, you can be a teacher, you can be
a simple person just sitting at your home wondering what is the next big thing. And 4IR is definitely for you. Thank you so much, Mr. Falconer.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I know it's quite difficult right now. Some of us are not actually in offices, and but this was a very great opportunity, and I'd love to work with you guys in the future. Uh, you do have my details. I'll definitely share my presentation with you guys. And please do contact me. I'll leave my details too. You can contact me. You can either contact me on william.faulkner@urula.co.za, or you can directly contact me. I'll just leave my details right here on the chat. And if you guys would love, in fact, I would love to partner with any of you guys that are interested in actually moving forward with this.
We'll definitely contact you. Looking forward to that. We're going to take a quick ad break and we'll be back.
All right.
Overview for now. Do you guys want to start with the challenges?
Yeah. So with the commerce challenge, we had people are advised to create a work exposure commerce project or create a student exposure digital marketing campaign. So anyone who's in the commerce industry, think of some ideas, play around it, and would love to see your ideas and what you come up with.
And on the IT side, you have to create an intelligent application that slows classes, libraries, and offices on campus, or create an online registration application that uses mapping intelligence. By the way, we had a session yesterday from Here Maps. It is advisable to actually use their platform for that.
Definitely. With the health side, we're looking for a creation of an application that calculates student health conditions using body information shared by the student, as well as creating an application that calculates students' nutritional intake based off meals eaten. I think that is a very interesting one because as students, we don't really care about what we're eating. That is a good age where whatever you eat doesn't go anywhere specific.
And most students survive on noodles.
Exactly.
So our next challenge, which will also be our next speakers, is the agricultural challenge, where you have to create a system that alerts farmers when certain plants are best to be planted, and design an IoT system that collects plant vegetation data from microcontroller.
I mean, on the engineering side, again, you have to design a smart robot case. This case must consist of multiple units, housing power, commute, and other components. And also, you ought to design a 4R device. It can be any form of technological device. I mean, you're just given these challenges on the spot to just see how creative you can be with the solutions.
Definitely. William did challenge us to be creative, and looking at these challenges, I must say that they're very broad. A challenge that I would also like to give people is to step out of your comfort zone. I mean, don't do something you're comfortable in. It's always good to step into something you're not comfortable in, because you end up finding out that there's things you're much better at than what you think you're actually good at.
And think outside the box. Always think outside the box. So are we ready for our next speakers? Next we'll have AgriCode, which is an agricultural platform, and we have Deniko presenting. Are you there?
Tinyiko?
Awesome. While we're waiting on that, don't forget it's hashtag Rise TVET on social media. That is Rise with a Z. And also subscribe to the Gig Culture YouTube channel to follow up on tomorrow's session that we'll also be having, where we'll be seeing the different solutions that the challengers built and the winners for tomorrow as well. I wish I was participating. Hey, definitely too. Diego, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I'm Diego Nturi from Agricode. I'm a system developer at Agricode, and I'll be presenting Agricode. Okay. First, me and the guys at Agricode, we identified some problems that are happening in the world so that we can find solutions to them using technology. The problem is we have a changing climate. As you know, tomorrow it's hot, one day it's cold and all that. It's pretty much changing. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see your screen.
Let me start. Okay, as I was talking about the changing of climate, we identified that the climate they change. Today it's extremely hot, and tomorrow it's very cold. And that's not consistent. And then we have a problem to access to data. Farmers they do not have access to information and also intelligence, which is available. So with the use of technology, we can be able to have access to this data. And then another problem is the decreasing employment, especially here in South Africa. You find that most of the youth they are unemployed, and we also have problem with market access and also the demand. So farmers do not have access to provincial or national markets. They only do things locally. They are mostly based. They are mostly localized. So these are the solutions that we have. We at Agricode have built an agricultural management platform. So this platform it provides the farmers with the tools that they need to sell their produce, and it also analyzes the data that is available, and it stay up to date of the current agricultural trend. Since our solution is community based, this helps in building a community of farmers which will encourage the sharing of knowledge and also educating them on how to use these technologies. And we also use sensors to actually collect the data that is available in the farms. And we actually collect this data in real time so that it can help the farmers in better managing their crops and also maximizing production. And when you maximize production, you also maximize of it. We also have a web application that we built, which is called Agri Market. It's a platform where small farmers can sell their crops. And thank you. So, if you want to have access to this platform, the link is agricode at agricode.billit.co.za. So I'll get one of my colleagues at BDIT to actually demonstrate how this whole system works.
No, skinny.
Hi, Tinyiko, are you still presenting? Tinyiko?
Yes, yes. Someone has to actually show you how it works. I'm waiting for him.
Okay.
We seem to be having a few technical difficulties with the agri code. So yeah, we just wanted to remind you about the hashtags. Hashtag Rise TVET. That is Rise with a Z TVET on social media. Just share with us what you've been learning. I know I've learned a lot over the time, and I've been listening to a lot of interesting talks. So just jump in on the conversation and let us know what you have been learning, and share your workspace with us. Let's communicate.
I mean, it simply shows you that no matter how hard you prepared for a presentation, you will still get technical glitches there and there. Hey,
Yeah, that's very true. But we need to get used to the online system now. I think it's time for us to start adapting and adjusting to it.
I think this brings us back to the issue of fire and robots taking over the world. This definitely shows us that tech does malfunction and we need to be there to fix it. So it's not taking over the world. We still have jobs. We just need to adapt to the new way of things happening and definitely grow with tech so that we understand how to fix the errors, thus helping us secure our jobs. I mean, you guys are also part of the AgriCode team. Can you please share with us while they're still fixing themselves, what exactly is AgriCode? So AgriCode is IoT solution that is used to simplify farming. What AgriCode does is it takes data from crops of farmers as well as weather data and so forth to help farmers know when to farm, how to farm, and what is more favorable on their land, depending on certain weather conditions. Seeing as the challenges also talks about finding solutions for farmers and whatnot. I feel like with IoT, because AgriCode is IoT, with IoT you can definitely find ways to better farming for farmers. It can be any type of farming. I mean, there's hydroponic farming, there's farming on land, there's aquaponic farming where there's these broad different types of farming where you don't need soil anymore, and FIRE is doing that. So definitely when entering the challenge, I'm looking forward to see what people can use FIRE for in terms of agriculture, because it is a very broad space. If you look at agriculture, it is not just about plants. There is agriculture in terms of livestock. There's agriculture in terms of finding out what plants need and when they need it. So it would be interesting to see people put together things that can feed plants and feed animals, track livestock, for example. Yeah, I think that is IoT in agriculture.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's very broad because with AgriCode, I know there is different sensors that they use, and you should always open your mind and not be limited to certain aspects. So with the challenges, we are looking forward to seeing broad things and not just like our typical everyday agricultural problem. But I do say this is just a tip for the challenges. Do check out data sources, check out what farmers need. Agriculture is a very what's the word? Safe space. So definitely do your research on the agricultural community before of thinking of an idea that will better farmers. Get to put yourself in a farmer's shoe. That's what I would say.
I mean, not to put you guys on the spot. Your team is having technical glitches, and we're here to find out about what you guys are building. What's the future of tech in agriculture? Or yeah, agriculture, rather say, not box it as farming. I definitely have to say that the future of tech in agriculture is very broad. I feel like it is a definite need with climate change happening and all these different things that the world has been going through. If we look now, for example, everyone has been saying this COVID-19. There's been a lot of things happening, food running out and all these different type of things. So with tech in agriculture, it would allow people to get their food when they need it, knowing what they're eating. So you can look at different nutritions in food, knowing that, okay, I am sick, I cannot eat this, I need this, or I'm allergic to this. Tech can definitely help you know that you should avoid this and that, and this is good for you. So if you're looking at tech in agriculture, it doesn't just stop with the farmer. It goes to stores, it goes to the person eating the produce. So tech is definitely very broad in agriculture, and it's a definite need within the agricultural space.
And we've seen recently a lot of young farmers coming to the market and they don't have direction as to how they should start. With AgriCode, we do educate farmers on what crops would be suitable for their farmland. We give them that information. So in that sense, we're helping them start their farming and take it to the market. So it's a platform to help for young farmers come and get knowledge on farming and agriculture as a whole.
Definitely. I'll have to say it's a build a farmer platform. So AgriCode builds farmers, and we do know that agriculture is very important in this world. So building a farmer is important. You can be at home farming in your own small space, or you can be a commercial farmer farming for a large number of people. AgriCode is definitely going to help you, and tech in agriculture can do that too. And how important was needs assessment in your solution? It's very important to know what not only what the farmers need, but what the plants need and what the stock needs, and also what the user, the person buying these things needs, because you can't build a solution for something and end up finding out that no, it's not needed. So that is time wasted. So it is very important to do research and find out what people need out there and what farmers need out there in order to connect them and to build a solution that caters to everyone and that can address everyone, but still make them comfortable enough to farm, make them comfortable enough to eat their food, knowing that it is good for them. We all know that these days people have different diets. There's people who are vegetarian, people who do not eat genetically modified food. So with AgriCode, we can definitely assure you that the produce you're eating is GMO free. That way you're eating something that is organic, and you don't have to worry and say, what if what I'm eating isn't organic, ruining your lifestyle and ruining your diet. So yeah. All right, cool. And what are the challenges that you guys faced? I mean, I with my understanding and my knowledge, this project started earlier this year, and we went into COVID, and a lot of things happened. And you guys are still students. We're talking to students here. What are the challenges that you guys faced when you guys were building this solution?
So I think first of all, our team started and we didn't know each other. So it was getting to know each other that was a bit of a challenge, and getting used to each other. But once we managed that, then COVID hit us, and the online distance working was quite challenging, and we did slack a little bit. But yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like good communication is the key to any functional workspace. If you keep communication there, then your projects can go swiftly and smoothly. But yeah, that's what I feel.
Something I'd also like to add on, we did notice, because while we were doing research, we did notice that farmers out there are very interested in using tech in the agricultural space. They're very open-minded and very interested in adapting to technology in agriculture. It's very interesting to see, because unlike other fields, the agricultural department is actually one space where farmers are very open and welcoming to technology. We didn't face much challenges, but what I can say is learning and understanding the produce and the farmers' needs is something that we came across and had to do research on very fast. Like we did say, data is very important. We had a session of data, and you do realize that data, finding accurate data is very important in building a solution. I mean, for somebody out there who's a student who doesn't know anything about competitions and all of those things that you guys are doing, and you ladies are doing amazing, by the way. So what advice would you give to that student out there who just has an idea and wants to actually start executing it? What advice would you actually give to those kind of people?
Don't undermine yourself. That's one thing. If you have an idea, try your best to implement it. The moment you start doubting yourself or undermining yourself, that's when you'll crash. But as long as you have the confidence, you put the confidence in yourself that I can do this, I want to do this, and I can achieve this, everything will go swiftly. You just need to now put in the effort to get what you want to come to life. I also will say that social media is your best friend. The tech space is very welcoming. I only joined late last year, and it's been such a great journey because it's so welcoming. So you end up finding out that you'll just post asking for information, and you can easily find information about different things. If you do want more information, go to Twitter and follow Geek Culture on Twitter, and also hashtag Rise TVET. That way you can learn more about how you can take your solutions and how you can enter competitions in order to grow yourself as a techie.
Mr. Ntluri, you seem to look fine. Are you still on the call? Are you still presenting? Did you fix your technical glitches? What's happening?
Yes, yes. We managed to fix something. I will continue.
All right, cool. Can we proceed with your presentation?
All right. Oh, here with me, I have the agri-code device. Inside this, it has sensors. It has the humidity sensor, and then this is your soil sensor. You see it right here. Your soil moisture sensor, and it actually goes on to the ground. And then this actually sends information to the backend that will show you how it does that. And on the screen.
Mr. Ntluri, are you still showcasing?
Yes, I am.
You went off. 7 minutes left.
Okay.
No, there seem to be a lot of technical
glitches.
Okay.
I think one of the challenges that we added was how to fix such technical problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Our device will make use of the Sigfox network, which is available to good materials software. It's actually a network for things. I currently have my device, which is connected right now. I'm going to show you. So basically, you can even track the location of the device. See? So you are able to see where the device is currently on the map. Okay. I went to the wrong device. We have too many connected right now. Okay, check on the map. I'll refresh this. Supposed to show the location where it is right now. Like there's a problem again. All right, I will just continue. Okay. So it is. Currently, it's supposed to be sending information to our backend. I'll show you what kind of information it's sending. So you can actually send or post data to your backend. Would be your AWS or your Lumix or Azure, Microsoft Azure. So us there at VillageIT, we are making use of AWS. So we create callbacks and then it sends data. As you can see here, but I'll only be posting data to my email account right now since the backend is currently offline. So here, as you can see, it says subject to the device. So here, when you send this variable, the device variable, it actually has your device code or your device number, and then the message syntax, you're supposed to write it here. As you can see, this is the message containing time. So I'm gonna be sending the time and also the data that our device is sending, it's getting from the sensors. Let me just, I'm gonna send it to this email. As you can see, I'm the recipient here. Okay. I'm gonna enable this callback. Oh, it's already enabled. So I'm gonna go to my emails so you can see. Alright. Okay, these were messages that were sent earlier. Still refreshing. So as you can see, this is actually what your time, but your time here is now in hexadecimal. So you need to decode this. So you're able to do that using other backends. So I was just testing whether this device does send information or sensor data from the sensors. Let me check it. Still giving us programs. So it's not showing the location that it's supposed to be. So here you can even use the data, your statistics data, to also check whether it was on or it was off. You can see here on the graph, you also have timestamps and the messages that it's sending. You can see here it says uplink here user messages. So it only sent 11 messages. So that was before we could even present. Here on the information, you can check whether your device is also online or offline. I'm going to demo how you create a callback using AWS. Just click here on new. You can see the AWS IoT. And then you launch your stack. Okay. Authorize it. Oh, I need my account ID. Okay, let me fix this and then I'll continue.
Sorry, Tiniko. Unfortunately, due to time, we'll have to cut this short. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, cool. Okay, so that was Tiniko from what Agricode does and how to use agriculture in the tech space. Moving on, I think we're just going to recap on what happened today. What was the highlight for today for both of you? I mean, there was so much we learned today.
I mean, the 3D printing.
Yeah, that was also very informative for me. I enjoyed that part of the segment and seeing how we can integrate 3D printing with education, especially as what played a big role in today's event for me.
I mean, I was very impressed. Not really impressed with the fact that we are 30 years behind, but I was impressed that there is a room for us to actually upskill ourselves and get into this new technologies that are out there currently in this 4-hour chamber thing.
I think for me, it has to be when Mr. Falcone actually challenged us to be more creative. I feel like with technology these days, everything being on the phone, a lot of youngsters are less creative, and he did mention that art came before engineering, and when we are younger, that is where our art highlight is at. So if we're not artistic from a young age, we fail on that engineering part as well. So my highlight for me was definitely when he challenged us to be more artistic and more creative. I feel like that is something that can definitely take Africa as a whole to higher grounds.
I mean, what about health, Mr. Funarote?
Yes, definitely. I enjoyed Tietzy's session, letting us know about how health can be used in today's time with digital consultations with doctors. I wasn't comfortable a little bit in terms of having my doctor consult me over my laptop because of I definitely want to know my doctor. But I feel like after knowing your doctor and going for the first few sessions and understanding that your doctor does understand your body, video consultations are definitely the future of tomorrow. I think it was very interesting, the whole concept behind Guardian Health. I think in future it probably would be option. I don't necessarily know if I would be ready for it right now, but it would definitely be something that I would look into in the health industry.
I'm very excited about their growth, especially in health, and that they chose to disrupt the health department. You know, usually you'd go to your hospitals, your doctors, you queue, all of those things. Now we can do everything on our fingertips. You get it?
It definitely saves time. Like, you won't have to wake up early, go stand in a queue and wait for the doctor to check you. So that's one positive thing that I like about the whole platform that they have. I am hoping it is cheaper to have a video consultation than actually going inside. We'll see about it. We'll see about it. We also had Dr. Plantenga also discuss research. He touched on research and how important it is to have research before looking for a solution. He did talk about how there's a lot of rural areas within South Africa where schools do not have toilets. I feel like it would be great to actually look into that and research more to find a solution for that. For me, it was very interesting because I used to want to do statistics, and seeing how he was playing around with all this data like sparked that interest back into me. But it's not a field I would think of going into, but it was definitely interesting, and it would be nice to learn more about statistics and the different things you can do with the data you collect.
I mean, looking at that graph, more especially, I saw it on Twitter as well. I think Misho posted the graph where it was scattered around that data. It showed us that there's a lot we can actually do with the data that's provided, and it shows that we have to really think about solutions, more especially in our tech scene.
Yeah, that is so true. Moving on, we had Vuyani who touched on robotics and in 4IR and so forth. He touched on the 3D animation modeling, front end, back end, and all those different things. There's one thing he did say where he actually pointed out that robotics and AI is not going to take over our jobs. We just need to move with the times. So I think that is something else. I feel like I was challenged a lot today. Move with the times, be creative, be artistic. Yeah, what did you think about Mr. Vianney's presentation?
It was the part about the artificial intelligence and how when I want something, I go on Facebook and I can see that thing without looking for it. That scared me a little bit, but I definitely think that it is a very interesting specter. The whole artificial intelligence thing, it's something worth looking into.
I was not impressed with the privacy factor though, that we do not have privacy over our data, and we really don't know what happens behind these companies. I mean, we trust these companies with our data so much that whenever we use their apps, they actually use our data and for advertising, for example, to target us. You know, I was not really comfortable with that. But for the fact that we can actually work with the robots and automate some jobs, I mean, it's worth a try.
I have to say, I used to be very weirded out when I would talk to someone about buying something and go to a social platform and actually find it there. But what makes me comfortable is the fact that I actually know that I can build this and I can control it on my own. So that makes me slightly comfortable. Next, we had Prof. Dwalowski, who actually discussed, he actually put us into what exactly 4IR thing is and what 4IR consists of. I feel like from yesterday, we had a discussion about what exactly 4IR is, and having him have the video and explaining it actually opened my mind more and understood more about what 4IR is.
And seeing how broad it is, it was very interesting. And it definitely challenged me personally to go read more into it and not just stick to the whole idea that I had at first of what 4IR is. And I think a lot of people were also challenged to look into 4IR and to go for 4IR.
I mean, we had a lot of definitions from ourselves of what 4IR is. I remember when we were sitting together and we were asking ourselves, what exactly is 4IR? And we had robots taking over the world. We had this different perspectives of what 4IR is. But I believe now we are on the same page, from learning from yesterday with the maps and everything else, and to today into engineering, robots, health. We quite informed right now.
Definitely. I have to say, to close off the challenges, we have challenges in commerce, IT, health, agriculture, as well as engineering. So for all you tech students out there, even if you're not in the tech industry or the tech field of study, be open to taking up those challenges and seeing what you can build to take over those challenges and build something productive, I have to say. I think that closes off day 2. We'd just like to thank our partners, which is Academic Solutions, Geek Culture, Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services, NYDA, Department of Higher Education and Training, Cybono, and that is it. That is the end of Day 2, TVET National 4IR Expo, brought to you by Academic Solutions and Geek Culture.
We're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Please subscribe to our channel on
Geek
Culture. Also, don't forget to post hashtag Rise TVET on social media and follow Geek Culture on social media as well.